It is one of those brutal, unvarnished statements that feels less like a piece of advice and more like a physical law, whispered across schoolyards and boardrooms with equal parts warning and condemnation. If you hang out with losers, you will become a loser. To sit with this statement is to feel its jagged edges. It is uncompromising, seemingly devoid of nuance, and carries a whiff of that most ancient of social sins, judgment. And yet, to dismiss it outright as mere cruelty or elitism is to potentially ignore a profound and deeply operational truth about the architecture of the human self. The self is not a fortress, isolated and self-determined. It is a permeable entity, a constant negotiation between the internal voice and the external chorus. To understand this statement is not to learn how to judge others, but to begin the most important project of your life, the conscious, deliberate curation of your own environment. Let us first step away from the charged and limiting word loser. It is a crude, finalizing label that speaks more to our fears than to reality. Instead, let us think in terms of energy, direction, and worldview. Every person you allow into your inner sphere carries with them a distinct psychological and emotional climate. Some are architects of possibility. Their language is peppered with what if, let's try and we can. They see setbacks as data, not destiny. Their presence is a quiet, steady invitation to expand, to reach, to believe in a version of yourself that is slightly beyond your current grasp. They are the living embodiment of a growth mindset, and their belief in you, often demonstrated not through grand pronouncements, but through simple expectation, becomes a scaffold upon which you can build your own confidence. Then there are those who inhabit a climate of constraint. Theirs is a world defined by limits. The language here is one of I can't, it won't work, they won't let me, and the ever-present cynical why bother. This is not merely pessimism. It is a coherent, self-reinforcing philosophy of life. It is a worldview that actively resists agency. For the individual trapped within it, it is a protective shell, a way to avoid the terrifying vulnerability of hope and the risk of failure. But for those in proximity, it functions as a subtle, relentless solvent. Your ambitions are met with a list of logistical impossibilities. Your small victories are minimized with a just wait until tomorrow. Your enthusiasm is met with a weary, knowing smile that suggests you are naive. Fair fool soon to be disillusioned. The mechanism at work here is far more sophisticated than simple peer pressure. It is a process of normalization. The human brain is a magnificent pattern recognition machine, and its most fundamental job is to determine what is normal in its immediate environment. Your brain is constantly asking, through a process largely unconscious, what do people like us do? What do people like us believe? What do people like us expect from life? The answers are gleaned from the people you spend the most time with. If your normal is a circle where complaining about unfairness is the primary social currency, then your brain will begin to code that as standard operating procedure. If your normal is a group that meets small challenges with resignation, then your brain will begin to wire resignation as the default response to adversity. This is where the wisdom of the psychologist dovetails with the strategy of the life coach. Cognitive psychology has long understood the power of cognitive distortions, those habitual erroneous ways of thinking that fuel depression and anxiety. Thoughts like catastrophizing, overgeneralization, and mental filtering. Spend enough time in an environment where these distortions are the common tongue, and they cease to be distortions you observe in others. They become the very grammar of your own inner monologue. You borrow your friend's narrative, and one day, without noticing the transfer, you find it is your own. There I never get any breaks becomes the lens through which you view your own minor inconveniences, morphing them into cosmic proof of your own inadequacy. The life coach, then, would not frame this as a call to abandon people in their time of need. That is a misreading of the principle, one born of a fear of being seen as disloyal or unkind. Loyalty is a virtue, but it must be intelligent. There is a vast chasm of difference between supporting a friend who is going through a difficult season, a season of loss, of failure, of deep uncertainty, and being perpetually anchored to someone who has made a permanent home in the harbor of their own disappointments. The former is an act of love. The latter is a form of codependency that ultimately serves no one. You cannot light yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, especially if they consistently complain about the draft. The transition, then, is from passive absorption to active curation. This is the work. It requires a courage that feels, in the moment, like a kind of cruelty. It begins with a ruthless audit of your own emotional state after social interactions. Do you leave a conversation with a particular person feeling energized, inspired, and more grounded? Or do you feel drained, cynical, and vaguely anxious? Pay attention to the residue. Your emotional system is giving you a data readout. It is telling you the nutritional value or lack thereof of that particular social food. This curation is not about building a gated community of the perfect and the perpetually successful. That is another trap, one of arrogance and fragility. It is about seeking out and nurturing relationships with people who possess what we might call constructive integrity. These are not necessarily the people with the most impressive job titles or the fattest bank accounts. They are the ones who take responsibility for their own messes. They are the ones who do what they say they will do. They are the ones who, when faced with a problem, instinctively begin to brainstorm solutions rather than allocate blame. They are reliable, not just in their actions but in their spirit. Their presence is a steadying force, a reminder that life is manageable, one honest, intentional action at a time. And what of your own role in this ecosystem? This is the pivotal question. The author, the storyteller in me, must insist that you consider this. In the narrative of another person's life, what character are you? Are you the voice of possibility or the anchor of doubt? Are you the friend who listens and then asks, "And what is one small step you could take right now?" Or are you the one who readily joins the chorus of complaint? The principle of you become who you surround yourself with is reflexive. It demands that you look not only at the company you keep, but at the company you provide. To want to be surrounded by people who lift you up requires a commitment to being a person who lifts others. It is a reciprocal economy of the spirit. Ultimately, the stark warning, "If you hang out with losers, you will become a loser," is not a comment on the inherent worth of other human beings. Every soul is on a journey, fighting battles we know nothing about. The statement is, rather, a profound acknowledgement of a fundamental law of human psychology. We are mimetic creatures. We are designed to imitate, to absorb, to become like our environment. To ignore this is to believe you can swim upstream in a river of molasses through sheer force of will alone. You may manage it for a time, but the current is relentless, and it will eventually dictate your direction. The goal, then, is to choose your river wisely. It is to understand that your aspirations are not just a matter of your internal resolve, but are lived out in a tangible, social ecosystem. The people you grant access to your time, your attention, and your vulnerability are the co-authors of your reality. They are the editors of your story, whispering suggestions into the narrative of your life. Some will suggest revisions of limitation, trimming your ambitions to fit a smaller, safer page. Others will encourage bold new chapters, believing in your plot twists even when you have lost the thread yourself. So, do not hear this principle as a call to arrogance, but as a call to profound responsibility. The life you are building, the person you are becoming, is too precious a project to leave to chance, to proximity, or to the unchallenged inertia of old friendships. Look around you. Listen to the conversations that fill your days. Feel the emotional atmosphere you are breathing in. And then, with the compassion of a psychologist, the strategy of a life coach, and the narrative intent of an author crafting their masterpiece, ask yourself the most important question you will ever consider. Is this the environment that will become me? And if not, have I the courage to build a new one?